On or around July 4th, 1997, the most powerful drug trafficker in Mexico lay on an operating table in Mexico City. He had checked in under a false name. He would never check out. The man known as Antonio Flores Montes, a fake identity, had undergone approximately 8 hours of extensive plastic surgery and liposuction. His real name was Amado Carrillo Fuentes, and he was trying to disappear. When U.S. DEA Administrator Thomas Constantine confirmed his death on July 6th, the world learned a stunning truth. The Lord of the Skies, worth an estimated $25 billion, had been undone not by law enforcement, but by a scalpel. Amado Carrillo Fuentes was born in the mid-1950s. His exact birth year is disputed, with sources citing either 1954 or 1956, in the small town of Guamuchilito, in Navolato, Sinaloa, Mexico. He was born to Vicente Carrillo Vega and Aurora Fuentes. He had at least 11 siblings, including Vicente and Rodolfo Carrillo Fuentes, both of whom would later play significant roles in organized crime. Crucially, he was the nephew of Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, known as Don Neto, a co-founder of the powerful Guadalajara cartel. This family connection would shape his entire trajectory. Through his uncle's connections, the young Carrillo Fuentes entered the world of drug trafficking in the early 1980s, learning the trade within one of Mexico's most powerful criminal organizations. By the early 1990s, he had risen through the ranks of the Juarez cartel, operating under its leader, Rafael Aguilar Guajardo. Carrillo Fuentes was patient, strategic, and, by all accounts, ruthless in his ambition. In 1993, after the assassination of Aguilar Guajardo, Carrillo Fuentes seized control of the Juarez cartel. He was now one of the most powerful criminals in the Western Hemisphere. What investigators discovered about Carrillo Fuentes' operation was staggering in its scale. He had built what the DEA assessed to be the largest and most profitable drug trafficking organization in Mexican history. He earned the nickname El Señor de los Cielos, the Lord of the Skies, because of his extraordinary method of transportation. A large fleet of jets, reportedly including over 30 Boeing 727 aircraft. These aircraft would fly massive shipments across borders, making the Juarez cartel's logistics operation rival that of legitimate airlines. The sheer audacity of the operation stunned even seasoned investigators. At the height of his power, the DEA estimated Carrillo Fuentes' operation was grossing $4 to $5 million a day. The numbers were almost incomprehensible. The DEA assessed his personal fortune at approximately $25 billion, though this figure has never been independently verified. If accurate, it would have made him one of the wealthiest criminals in history. Investigators found that Carrillo Fuentes was laundering money through Colombia to finance his aircraft fleet, creating a transnational pipeline that connected South American production to North American distribution. But the trafficking was only part of the picture. The Juarez cartel's dominance was sustained through systemic corruption, a network of bought officials that reached into the highest levels of the Mexican government and military. The cartel's influence extended across the U.S.-Mexico border corridor, particularly through Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas, a geographic choke point that gave whoever controlled it enormous power over the flow of narcotics into the United States. Both the U.S. DEA and Mexican authorities tracked Carrillo Fuentes extensively throughout the 1990s, particularly after he consolidated control of the Juarez cartel in 1993. But building a case against a man this powerful proved extraordinarily difficult. Carrillo Fuentes had been arrested once before, in 1989, on drug charges. But he was released months later, when authorities said they lacked sufficient evidence to prosecute. He would never be arrested again. At least 3 U.S. federal arrest warrants existed for him. Yet no Mexican court had issued a warrant on trafficking charges during his lifetime, a fact that spoke to the depth of his influence. Then, in February 1997, a stunning revelation shook the investigation to its core. General Jesus Gutierrez Rebollo, Mexico's top anti-narcotics officer, the country's drug czar, was arrested. The charges were devastating. Gutierrez Rebollo had been on Carrillo Fuentes' payroll. He was living in a luxury apartment owned by the drug lord. The man hunting the cartel was working for it. The arrest of Gutierrez Rebollo was a breakthrough that exposed the depth of cartel corruption within Mexico's military and government. But it also had an unintended consequence. According to DEA assessments, the general's arrest sent Carrillo Fuentes into a state of heightened paranoia. His most trusted protector in the government was gone. He was more exposed than ever, and he knew it. With his network of protection crumbling, Carrillo Fuentes reportedly grew desperate. DEA assessments indicated that his paranoia accelerated a drastic decision. He would change his face entirely. Some accounts allege he had explored other escape routes, reportedly seeking asylum in Cuba and Russia, though these claims have never been definitively confirmed. On or around July 3, 1997, Carrillo Fuentes checked into Santa Monica Hospital in Mexico City under the alias Antonio Flores Montes. He underwent approximately 8 hours of extensive plastic surgery and liposuction. The procedure ended in his death. The precise cause remains disputed. The autopsy reportedly found that a combination of medications and anesthesia may have caused respiratory failure leading to cardiac arrest, though some sources suspect foul play. When news broke, many initially questioned whether Carrillo Fuentes had truly died, or whether he had staged his own death to vanish permanently. The doubt persisted until formal confirmation. On July 6, 1997, DEA Administrator Thomas Constantine confirmed that Amado Carrillo Fuentes was dead. The Lord of the Skies, never formally apprehended, had died before authorities could bring him to justice. Amado Carrillo Fuentes was never tried or convicted. He died a fugitive, but the pursuit of justice around him continued in the months and years that followed. Months after his death, in November 1997, the bodies of doctors involved in his surgery were discovered encased in concrete inside steel drums along the Mexico-Acapulco highway. The exact number of victims varies by source. General Jesus Gutierrez Rebollo, the drug czar who had been on Carrillo's payroll, was convicted of drug trafficking and corruption. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Carrillo Fuentes' son, Vicente Carrillo Leyva, became a high-ranking cartel member and was arrested in 2009. A reminder that the family's entanglement with organized crime stretched across generations. His brother Vicente Carrillo Fuentes, known as El Viceroy, assumed leadership of the Juarez cartel after Amado's death. He was eventually arrested in October 2014. In February 2025, Vicente Carrillo Fuentes was extradited to the United States, nearly 3 decades after his brother's death. The American justice system was still pursuing the Carrillo Fuentes family. The death of Amado Carrillo Fuentes did not bring peace. It triggered a violent power struggle in Ciudad Juarez that left dozens dead, as rival factions fought to control the lucrative trafficking corridor he had dominated. That power vacuum would metastasize over the following decade, contributing to the broader cartel wars that consumed Ciudad Juarez in the 2000s and made it one of the most dangerous cities on earth. The Gutierrez Rebollo scandal fundamentally altered U.S.-Mexico counter-narcotics cooperation. If the nation's top drug czar could be compromised, no one in the chain of command could be automatically trusted. Carrillo Fuentes' story, the fleet of Boeing 727s, the billions, the bought generals, became a defining case study in how narcotics trafficking had evolved from street-level crime into an industrial-scale enterprise. And perhaps the deepest irony remains. A man who built one of the largest criminal empires in history, who commanded a fleet of jets and an estimated fortune of billions, met his end not through law enforcement or rivals, but on a hospital bed, trying to become someone else. Amado Carrillo Fuentes was never brought to trial. He died a fugitive, worth billions, on an operating table. Proof that even the most powerful empires can collapse from within. A new case drops every day. Subscribe so you never miss one.